carb on Poulans, on a Poulan chain. So I'm going to grab this one here today to show a demonstration. So that's an older Poulan, but it's got a Walbro carburetor on it. But before I do that, I want to show you guys a few carbs and what's involved in doing that. So here's an example of two carburetors that you're more than likely going to find on these Poulan chainsaws. There's a lot of different models of carburetors as well, but most Poulans now use a Zama carburetor, but some of the older ones do use a Walbro. I prefer the Walbro myself. Now when you go to adjust the carburetor, there could be these little plastic things here, like that I have in my hand, could be on the screws like that with an insert, and what that does is it keeps the screws in the way it's set, so meaning that no one can go and tamper with it. The only way to adjust the carb if you've got these screw locks is to remove them on each carburetor. Now the Zama has a slot for a screw. Some of the Zamas have a spline den screw like this without any slots. So this is the tool that you can buy on the internet or from mowersforyou.com. They have good prices. It's a tool with a spline den at the end. And what that does is it fits right into the screw, as so. Well, you especially use this tool if you don't have slots for a screwdriver. The one good thing about that spline den tool is that the screwdriver stays stuck on it, so when it's vibrating you don't lose track of what you're doing. So usually when you set your saw, there's a low and high speed screw. There will be an L and an H under the screws. So under the left screw here there's an L for low, H for high on the right screw. The low one's going to give you more gas and performance. The high too helps with that, but also with idling. Well, either screws help in both areas anyway. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to take this Poulan chainsaw here. I'm going to untime the carburetor, and then I'll do a demonstration of how you bring it back up to where it should be. So for example, by the sound and by how it idles and the power you get out of it. So I'll take the cover off and I'll show you guys what kind of carburetors under this cover here. So to remove the cover, there's 1, 2, 3 Torx screws, number 27. So just remember that, it's a number 27 screwdriver. So when you take the cover off your saw, the way you can tell if you have a Zama or a Walbro carburetor is to look way down inside here. And on this one here, it's a Walbro. I can see Walbro written right on the top of the carburetor here. It says Walbro. And you can look down here, there is a screw stopper there. But this one will allow me to time it even though it's in place. I have slots there for the screws as well, as you can see. So I'll demonstrate how this works. So first of all, I'm going to untime it. I'm not going to show you what I'm going to do, but you'll see. So I won't idle. I can tell it's running way too rich. So when that happens, usually the case is that you got to screw in the low screw, which is the left screw. I'm going to turn it in half a turn, and then I'll proceed to start it again. So to try to adjust this saw, I'm going to start it. I'm going to hold it full throttle the whole time I'm trying to time it, because that's the only way you can tell the highest RPM you're going to get. Be very careful doing this. Make sure that there's nothing in the way. And that's about it. So there we go. So I'm going to turn in the low screw until it sounds better. turned in the low screw approximately 1 turn in. The idle's good. It's very responsive now. And if that doesn't do it, then you try to adjust the H screw, which is the one on the right hand side of the low screw. So your saw should idle. There, it's stalled again. You may have to turn up the idle. I'll start it up again. This screw right here is your idle. You turn it in, it will idle faster. Turn it back, it will idle slower. There you go. So there you go, that's how I adjust my Poulan chainsaws. If you've got any questions, just email me. Just be very careful doing this, because you've got a chain that's spinning at high speed, and sometimes things get uncomfortable. You don't want to hurt yourself or anybody else that may be around. So usually the low screw will do the trick, but again, you may have to adjust both. Setting on this carburetor, I just checked it, is about 1.5 turns for the low screw, and 1.5, about 1 to 1.5 for the high. Try 1.5 on both and then go from there. So what you do is you screw in your screws right down to the carb, don't tighten too much, and then count your turns out. So it would be 1.5 for low, 1.5 for H, and then work from there. You can either maybe turn the low in maybe another half a turn when it's running or not, or the high out a bit. So go from there, and then you may have to adjust your idle screw here. That's not a carb adjustment, it's just adjusts the linkage of the throttle. So try that, let me know what happens. If you still don't do well, you may want to take the muffler off and then pull the muffler off, and you're going to see the piston coming up and down of the exhaust port, and you're going to see the piston and the rings, and you want to make sure that these are not scored. So try that, let me know what happens, but be very careful.